How much is too much? Depends on the topic of conversation, of course. If we're discussing the polar ends of pleasure and pain, then yes, suffice it to say, moderation is key. However, what about the mundane? The things we forget every day that we seem to harbor in excess no matter how hard we try to ignore them? Can you take the same route to work too often? Buy the same set of groceries too much? Perhaps sleep in the same position for years and years without consequence? I don't know how this always happens to me. I start the video with one idea and ramble on and on until my point is completely lost. And I write books. Yes, I do. Because no matter where you may find yourself while following the yellow brick road of consciousness, you'll be surprised how often the answer will find you along the way. To answer my own question, how much is too much? It depends. On the person, on the thing, on the weather. A good rule of thumb is to ask yourself, well, have I changed? This thing, whatever it is that may or may not be too much, has it altered my way of life? For better? For worse? Now, let's specify the question to the practice of reading. How much is too much? Well, my instinct is to go with the limit does not exist. But, like with all things, the sweet spot lies in variety. One could read too much horror and become innately frightened of the world around them, or perhaps reading too much monster romance can ruin your perception of your own marriage and your ever-changing expectations for your partner. Heck, you could read too much self-help books and become your own most insufferable character. Or you could... Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Neverland Book Club. That was a very long-winded way of saying I read a ton last year. Am I trying to justify my choices? Absolutely. Always. I will defend myself in saying that although I read so many books, these genres were all over the place. Yes, smut and romance held a high number once I rounded up all the stats, but they were accompanied by the many other genres I find myself enjoying no matter the time of year. In addition to writing another novel almost to completion in 2024, I read over 110 books, totaling roughly 40,000 pages and over 10 million words. From horror and sci-fi to historical fiction and fantasy, I traveled to every section of the bookstore this year and found myself lost in the minds of authors I'd never read before, discovering new favorites and relating to characters from completely different worlds. Reading truly is a portable kind of magic, or whatever it was Stephen King once said. I might have it printed on a mug somewhere. Now, I won't be too redundant in retelling my favorite reads from the first half of this year since that video already exists. If you'd like to give that a watch, it will be linked in the description below and somewhere here if I remember. Since then, I've discovered a few more 5-star reads I can't wait to tell you all about, so without further ado, let's get into it. We'll start with a couple smutty titles just to get them out of the way, and then I promise the rest of the list is clean-ish. Lights Out by Nevessa Allen. This book had me feeling all kinds of emotions, from kicking my feet with giddy excitement to looking at myself in the mirror wondering what the hell I've come to. This book took the thirst trap trend of TikTok and ran with it so hard it switched up my algorithm without even having to pick up my phone. If you're a woman on the internet between the ages of 22 and 37, I'm sure you've come across a shirtless masked man silhouetted in his bedroom doorframe with a red light bleeding in through the hallway behind him, and a fake knife in his hand. Maybe. And I know I'm not alone when I see something like that, as I'm just innocently scrolling and pause and look around and whisper, why is this hot? What's happening? Since when did the scream mask switch from horror to mischievously erotic? This book was absolute fun from start to finish. It had me laughing out loud and hitting that smutty bone in my brain that honestly hasn't been tickled in quite some time. If you're into dark romance and don't mind, nay, prefer a bit of stalking tendencies in your MMCs, this book is for you. The son of a deranged serial killer with an online alter ego and hacker abilities uses his specific set of skills to stalk a trauma nurse with ties to the Italian mob. I am in. The back and forth between these two characters is so believable and charming, their inner thoughts so raw and real, their chemistry and pacing so satisfying. I loved it. I love Nevessa Allen and her weird little brain, and I can't wait to read more from her, so strong start. Next, following the smutty trend with a crowd favorite from Sarah Kate, Keep Me. This was my introduction into grumpy romance with a Scottish MMC, and I'll be honest, I wasn't into how mean he was to her at first. I didn't like her character or the choices she made towards the start of the story, but as their motivations became more clear, as their trauma surfaced and I got to know these characters on more than one dimension, I came to love them and their struggles. Sarah Kate has the wonderful ability to take flawed characters and make her readers fall in love with each and every scar they bear. Having dealt with my own struggles with agoraphobia, reading a character overcome that in a way that wasn't so dry and clinical, but raw in its reality was so refreshing. To read a character want to be better for someone and not succeed right away, because sometimes love isn't enough. And sometimes we have to fight our own demons to spare those we love from fighting them for us. I love that. I loved Killian, and I love you, Sarah Kate. Just about every book I read from you is a guaranteed good time. Thank you for writing books, and goddamn, that Scotsman knows how to eat. Give him a staircase and he'll treat it like a dining table. Also, Sarah Kate, if you do ever see this, I did request to be an ARC reader for Shattered Innocence, and if you could just approve that would be great. I would, please, I love you. Okay, go keep writing. These next titles I've gone into detail in previous videos before, so I'll just rapid fire them here real quick. If we're going in order from great to best, then next would be Yours Truly by Abby Jimenez. This woman's ability to write characters Was that the cat? This woman's ability to write characters with difficult inner conflicts and misbeliefs to overcome is unmatched. You can really tell when an author has struggled with something firsthand and writes the untreated reality of that struggle into their characters. If you've never read anything by Abby Jimenez and you've been curious about her work, please read this. Okay, Divine Rivals and Ruthless Vows by Rebecca Ross. I feel like I haven't shut up about these books all year. This duology stole my heart right out of my chest and reminded me how much I love the act of picking up a book and sitting down to read it. These novels have been mentioned time and time again, and I will likely bring them up more. I love them immensely, and if anyone has a bad thing to say about them, just keep it to yourself, okay? I don't want to hear it. And you know what? That same thing goes for the next title on the list, Crescent City 3, House of Flame and Shadow. Sarah J. Maas, This was entirely fan service in the best way possible, picking up where the last one left off right at the jaw-dropping moment, running with the crossover we all craved. I ate this up like a snake with its jaw unhinged. Whole. I'll take no criticism. I'll take no negativity. These books are brilliant and fun. This woman is a genius, and I'll hear no argument. End of discussion. Next, back to romance for just a moment. Funny Story by Emily Henry. Again, this was previously mentioned, but my favorite part of this novel was the fact that it was everything I ever wanted in a contemporary romance novel. It had every element needed to scratch the itch this genre is meant to scratch. Satisfying on so many levels without sacrificing the integrity of the characters. If you're into contemporary romance, I know you've read at least one of Emily Henry's novels. She's the Beyonce of the genre. But if you haven't read this one yet, please do. By the time I came around to it, I wish I had read it sooner. So just don't wait anymore. Just go read it. Next, let's dive into a bit of horror romance with Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. I believe I mentioned this book briefly in my horror author video. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Isabel Cañas is skilled in writing a romance with enough faith to push you through the horror on the pages in your hands. Characters that are faced with true horrors in their lives as well as in their minds, with enough dimension and charisma to overcome any doubt cast upon them like a spell. With her specific taste of blending horror and romance, Cañas' stories can be enjoyed year-round, not only when the pumpkins come out to play. Between Vampires of El Norte and The Hacienda, I think I enjoyed this one even more. And I like this comeback of vampire stories, sticking to the old tales of them being actual creatures to fear rather than sparkly statues with boundary issues. And just really quick on that vein, stay tuned for the next video that I'm gonna put out. Nosferatu! Subscribe, stay tuned. It's gonna be fun. All right, the 3 top spots on this year's list all belong to the unbelievably talented and gifted Olivie Blake. I loved her when I read Alone with You in the Ether. I loved her when I read the Atlas 6 series. And when I finished the final installment of that series, I didn't think I could love an author more. That was until I read Masters of Death and One for My Enemy. It's as though this woman writes love stories to writing, odes to the existence of words itself. Some say her prose are too purple, too pretentious. And to those I say, poppycock. Jeez, that was kind of aggressive. Lean into it. Embrace the pretentious air of a word with more syllables than necessary. There will always be a prettier way of describing a scab on one's knee, the smell of morning air before the sun rises, how different that scent may hit you if someone you love is standing by your side. And dear Olivie is not afraid to play with her words like a lion with its food, in a way that makes the mundane just more exciting, more beautiful, and I love her for that. Masters of Death stars an ensemble of supernatural characters, a vampire, a demon, a guardian angel, a ghost, and the godson of death himself. Some lore and world building tells us that there's a game the immortals play, and there's only one rule: don't lose. There is little to no plot to this novel. There is no grand story. You're here for the legend. You're here for the vibes. You're present and in the moment while reading this book, and that's exactly what I want out of a read like this. Following that same formula with One for My Enemy, we have another troupe of characters with a more Romeo and Juliet-esque feel. I was enamored on page 1. Blake has this way of creating characters you don't exactly fall in love with right away, but almost fall in lust with. Characters you find yourself deeply intrigued by, with a charisma that jumps off the page and strokes the hand you're holding her books with. Her characters give me chills. They make me believe what they believe, and I can't help but wear their tragedy on my sleeve as though it were my own. Too much? Never. You can never be too much for me, Miss Olivie Blake. Never stop doing this to me. Please. Alright, if I keep going, this will just be an entire video dedicated to appreciating Olivie Blake, and although I'm perfectly fine with that, that's not the purpose of today's video. Okay, some honorable mentions I'd like to add to the list this year include Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez. Everything good I mentioned with yours truly, this book also carries in abundance. Complex characters, realistic scenarios, a gradual and satisfying romantic plot. The only reason it did not make my official list is because, there's a chapter where the FMC gets sick, like pukey sick, and now all I can remember when thinking of this book is how deeply uncomfortable I was while reading those pages, despite having fun during the other chapters. Why do writers do this? I understand there being a trope in romance of the protagonist falling ill or getting injured, and the love interest nurses them back to health, stays by their bedside the entire time. This is timeless. It happens all the way from Pride and Prejudice up to Bridgerton. I get it. But why so often puke? It's me. It's a me thing. I can't. I can't. Another honorable mention, The Graveyard Shift by M.L. Rio. At just under 120 pages, this novella was perfect for a last-minute December read. It was cozy and spooky and creepy and unsettling, and I was all cozied up in bed with a hot chocolate and no alarm set for the next morning, which is just perfection. I also posted a little short, so go watch that. Give it a like. Now, as for the worst titles I came across this year, I happened to cover the majority of them in my mid-year wrap-up video. Since then, I've been pretty much blessed with enjoying most of what I've been reading. The only addition to that naughty list would be Accidentally Amy by Lynn Painter, which sucks because I read 2 other books by her and didn't find them as insufferably cliche and annoying as this one. Call me a hater, I don't care. I didn't like this one, and I think her other novels are more worth your time, so Happily Never After. You want to read Lynn Painter? Read that one. Okay, that wraps up the year 2024, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here with me another year. I have so much planned for the next year in regards to my writing and the content I intend on making for you to watch and join me, so be sure to subscribe and click that bell to be notified when another video is posted. And comment below what your best and worst reads of the year were. I always love going through them and seeing what everyone else lists as their best and worst. Today's shout out goes to Jeff Gray for this lovely, lovely comment. I truly appreciate you viewers who have been with me over the years and have stayed consistent in your viewership despite my sporadic posting schedule. I hope your holiday season was as bright as your best read, and that the new year brings us all more books to share and enjoy. And who knows, maybe I'll even see my book in some of my favorite booktubers wrap-ups this year. A Girl Can Dream. Stay lost, keep reading. Happy New Year. Goodbye.